Yeah, madam.
Okay. Yeah. Welcome back, everyone, for the fourth day, second session. So for today's speaker, to introduce today's speaker, we have Mr. Karthi Ganeshan Durai, sir.
Hello, madam.
Good morning, sir. Welcome to the FDP conducted by it is conducted under Atal and in collaboration with Atal. We from RVC we are conducting this quantum computing workshop for faculties as well as research scholar. Welcome to you one more time, sir. Just to introduce you to the audience, sir has sir has completed his. Can you hear me, sir?
Yes, I'm hearing you.
Yes, Ronnie, go ahead.
Yeah. Sir completed his diploma in computer science and engineering in 1992 from Karaikal Polytechnic College, Karaikal. Then he did his master's degree in 2000. Then in NIT, National Institute of Electronics and Information Technology. Then bachelor degree in business administration and management from Alagappa University in 2013. Then from Pondicherry University, he did his MBA in 2020 to 2022 year. He'll be completing his MBA. Then he started as a senior business analyst from 2012. Then he became business analyst in Dell International Services Private Limited. Then there were many more, services done in Dell as solution architecture advisor, business intelligence advisor, senior advisor, then now a consultant business intelligence in Dell for 5 years, 10 months. He's also a volunteer in Shikshana Foundation as part-time teacher. And he is conducting many classes in the subjects of math, science for students in government primary school in Jogupalia, Bangalore. And he has a lot of licenses and certifications to his credits in the field of physical basics of quantum computing, introduction to quantum computing, then quantum machine learning, introduction to quantum computing. Then he also has many certification courses done in building blocks of quantum computer, then Julia scientific programming, data scientists toolbox, etc. in University of Toronto, St. Petersburg State University, then in Coursera and many code schooling areas, certifications where he has completed his certification courses. Then, yes, we are really happy to have you here, sir. Sir will be covering the broad perspective of quantum classifiers. I hope all the audience will be benefited by that. I will all appreciate attendees if they can ask questions on quantum classifiers. Over to you, sir. Thank you for coming once again.
Thank you very much. Good morning. Morning to all. Thanks, madam. Thanks for the nice introduction. It's great privilege to come and present for Karnataka #1 private college, RVSC. I'm very proud to, and I consider this as a great privilege. Thanks for the opportunity for the organizers. Okay, let me share my screen. Madam, can we give permission to share my screen?
Sure, sir. Sure, sir.
Yeah. And so it is going to be a technical discussion. I'm trying to cover with a lot of industry examples rather than theoretical aspects. But considering the nascent stage of this technology, most of the concepts are POCs, proof of concept. So the real life or real time application of these concepts still emerging. Wherever applicable, I will give the example. So let us see what are the agenda for today's session. I am keeping a very simple agenda. I will just cover up what is the machine learning classification, then quantum classifier, then hybrid computing. Then I will cover up the popular framework, Pennyline and Qiskit. Then I have written 4 programs. I will walk you through those 4 programs. Through those 4 programs, I will explain the intricacies of building a quantum classifiers. It is very simple agenda. Feel free to post your questions in the Q&A session. And we have a special Q&A session, specific timing for Q&A session. But in between, if necessary, I will cover the questions. Because if some questions are coming, feel free to stop me. I will explain and answer those questions, then move to next step. Madam told about me clearly, just as a part of presentation, I'm keeping my how I started.
Sir, can you go to full screen mode, sir?
Oh, okay, right. Let me go to full screen. Is it good now?
Yeah, fine.
Okay, right. Yeah. And most recently, yeah, this is the introduction. So I don't want to spend time on here. So all of us know what is the classification, right? And thinking that it is the 4th day of your FTP, you might have heard a lot of things about machine learning, classification. I just keep it as a starting point. To start with, this is my perspective. What is a classification? So the mathematical description. But what comes to my mind whenever it comes to classification, the beauty of mathematics. See, a simple formula y equal to mx plus c. How that simple formula, mathematical formula y equal to mx plus c, turned into an entirely different spectrum of business opportunity in the name of machine learning, then moved to quantum machine learning. So you can connect that y equal to mx plus c, a simple mathematical formula when single variable. When we have multiple variables, we can be moved to statistics based regressor, linear regression. Then that is added with other capabilities in the form of artificial intelligence techniques, which is covered as multiple tools, standard decision tree, naive Bayes, then AI, neural networks. These are all the various ways to classify your data. But the beauty falls into starts from y equal to mx plus c. Draw a line, divide the line, you will get different classes of data. A simple idea of y equal to mx plus c is driving trillion business these days. So that is the beauty of this y equal to mx plus c. So everything starts from y equal to mx plus c. Then we are going to cover our topic for the day, quantum classifiers. Actually, when it comes to quantum classifiers, it's predominantly neural networks and variants of neural networks. The GAN, I just kept it for a way of another way of classification or another way of adding processing the data, but predominantly quantum classifiers are neural networks. The reason why, see, in classical computing, it is called a neural network, but in quantum computers fall into a concept called classifiers directly. The reason for this kind of classification or this kind of categorizing, bucketing all neural networks into quantum classifier, you may not, you may want to know why it is put into a classifier bucket. Because in classical computing, if you see a linear regression, binary, polynomial regressors, then decision tree, those kind of techniques. But when it comes to quantum, naturally neural networks fall into classifier. The reason is that the way how quantum mathematics, the quantum mechanics, the mathematics behind quantum mechanics is very close to this neural network processing. meaning that the complex number put into a represented in a blosphere can easily transformed into a neural network. And it has, when it is in the superposition, it can concurrently process the information, something similar to your neurons. So that's naturally fall into classifiers, quantum classifiers. The neural networks fall into quantum classifiers. There are 4 variants: tailored quantum kernels, circuit centric, then TTN, then MERA. We are going to see these various quantum classifiers in detail in a subsequent text. So this is very much fundamental or introduction to our topic, what we are going to discuss for the next 1.5 hour or 2 hours. Hope this sets the context, right? So this is the context for our discussion. If anyone have any question, feel free to ask. I can answer the before moving to next topic. I ready to answer those questions. Okay. Any questions, madam? Is there any question, madam?
No, sir. No, sir. You can carry on. Maybe they will ask in the end.
Okay, that's good. When it comes to, I think all the staff members and then all the research scholars have fair idea about neural network. I'm assuming so. With that assumption, and directly jumping into quantum neural networks. So it is a artificial neural network concept, and we already have some already in the 19th. It is quantum version of feed forward. The very power or the capability of neural networks in the machine learning model is the feed forward. That is the real power of the quantum or any neural network based machine learning algorithm or any AI systems, because the feed forward is the mechanism to make corrections. We can connect this with an analogy or with a comparison, how kids are learning or how robot is fed with a program for learning from obstacles. If there is an obstacle first time, it will take some time, or it will hit or fall. Then the next time, or it will, from that learning, it will move to the next. It will take a different course of action. So those kind of things, the normal how human or biological or any animals are learning from their experience, the same way we are giving to the neural network in the classical computing. The same thing here also we will apply in the quantum neural network. So the feed forward, that is the key to any neural network, and same holds true for quantum neural network also. So the QNN, this image, it is a standard neural network where we have a multiple perceptor to output. So from the input to output, we have multiple layers, and that information flow or the decision flow can take any correct or any predefined or any new path to reach the output. So the power of this reducing multiple layers, then scaling up and then scaling down, or choosing multiple options and then reducing, scaling, reducing, scaling, reducing. This is the power of any neural network. So that's what it is here. So now when it comes to that feed forward concept, that is, as I told you, that is an important concept. We are implementing that with the concept called variational circuits. So the variational circuit is the beauty of hybrid architecture, that quantum infrastructure integrated with the classical infrastructure to give us a variational quantum classifier. This circuit, the quantum circuit, will perform the finding the value, then that will be fed into the classical system. The classical system is the cost function. It will determine whether we are nearing. It will calculate the loss, then it will calculate the cost, then it will tell, oh, we are nearing the solution, then it will feed forward, then it will calculate next value, then give it. So this kind of back and forth between quantum and classical is the key for this variational quantum classifier. So it is optimization is the key here. We are going to optimize the objective functions using the loss. I will show the actual programs at the next part where I have the actual program for optimizing by checking accuracy and square loss using these two functions, how we are going to calculate the cost and how to feed backward or feed forward approach to find out whether our variational or whether the quantum classifier is nearing a accurate or tolerant or value within the given tolerance. So that is the beauty of this variation circuit, variational quantum classifier, where we are able to use the power of classical computing and coupled with power of quantum computing. So quantum computers can do a lot of things in parallel and concurrent processing in the superposition. After it's performed, that oracle is completed, a classical system will measure, then give feedback. So this is what happening. So the variational quantum classifier, it is a beautiful concept, amalgamation of quantum world and classifier, classical world. This is really very interesting concept, which we are going to deep dive in the actual demonstration. I will show the programs. Then the Dugan, though the Dugan is not a part of classifier, but it is essential to understand that it is possible to use the quantum version of GAN, generative adversarial network. So the reason why I included here is that most of the data processing or generating a new kind of outcome based on the real data, to, whether it is a fake data, real data, that kind of verification can be used as a classifier in certain business applications like image processing and identifying the sensors, output of sensor, categorizing the output of sensors. All those things can be used with the help of Dugan. That's the reason I included it. But I included this for the application. This is really heavily applied in the industrial applications, but not in the quantum version, but the GAN. Because of that application, it has a potential to be used in the quantum solutions also. Then comes tailored quantum kernel. This tailored quantum kernel, any model, any mathematical model can be processed with the kernel, right? Hope you all remember what is the kernel. I would like to recall the support vector machine kernel. The kernel can be a what is called a parabolic curve, or it is a hyperplane in the n-dimensional space, or it can be a straight line. So the kernel, the complexity of the kernel determines the application of your model. So here, if we are able to customize or tailor the kernel, we can use the same model with the tailoring for different applications. So that is the concept here. Here there are multiple methods to change or process your or tailor your kernel. One is the distance-based quantum classifier. The kernel is based on quantum state fidelity. So between the training and test data, how the quantum state correlate, that fidelity can be used, and that fidelity score will give you a value. Using that, you can classify the data. That is one application of this tailored quantum kernel. And this tailoring can be done systematically because of the nature of concurrent processing, the capability of quantum mechanics or quantum physics to process the information concurrently. So here, what the important step or the main quantum operation is this swap. So the swap gate can be used for building a quantum circuit with the measurement at the stage for this two single qubit system. Then constant number of repetition will allow you to identify the fidelity. And here is the operation called Hellstrom operator. It is a well-known optimal quantum state discrimination can be derived. The Hellstrom operator can be used in this tailored quantum kernel. This is one option only, but there are other operators also. But this one is the tested one. That's the reason I included here. But still, we can expect more papers on tailored quantum kernel with other operators. Madam, is there any question? Should I answer any question before moving to next?
No questions in the chat box, sir.
Okay, cool. Okay. I would like to revisit this because actually the Hadamard, these are all like actual implementation. Before moving to this one, because this is one stage, so I want to revisit these things to make sure that we are all in the same page, or at least we understand what are the quantum classifier types. One is the basic neural network with the standard perceptor to output with the layers approach. That is the standard neural network. That can be achieved with the help of a classical based feed forward approach, which is giving the input for optimizing the objective function. Then comes QGAN, I will leave QGAN. Then comes tailored quantum kernel, where we are using Hellstrom operator to systematically tailor the quantum kernel for finding the fidelity. The word variational quantum classifier. The word variational comes exactly. I'm not variational.
Sir, there are some questions here, sir. Is it because it's based on variational principle?
It is kind of that reason, the principle, variational principle, but here it is used in the context of hybrid approach. Anything variational in the quantum world, it will be connected always with a classical phase. There will be two phases, classical phase, quantum phase. These two things constitute the reason for variational. So that's the reason it's called variational quantum classifier. Maybe there may be better answer by some experienced people. With my exposure, I think it is because of this mix of classical and quantum approach in the variational model. So the value will be, see, here the things falls into the encoding. Classical computer use a different method of data representation. Quantum uses different encoding, maybe amplitude or phase or whatever feasible. It will be the data representation, the standard binary information, then encoded into quantum, and it is feeding back. So that may be the reason for that variational, the word variational quantum classifier. Does it answer your question? I'm open for another question before moving to next topic. If not, I can move to the next topic. Okay, let us see Hadamard classifier. So one flexibility or one immediate applicability of quantum system for this classification is that the standard operations available in quantum mechanics can be used for classification, but it's not true with classical world. In classical world, we have to build a model for performing the actual classification. For example, in a digital computer, we have to build support vector machine or a decision tree or naive based, those kind of models based on the conditional probability or statistical linear regression need to be used to perform the classification. But in quantum computing, move your data to position, superposition, then measure it. Within this stage, your data, based on the state preparation, whatever the state it is prepared, the classification will be done automatically. Not automatically, of course, we have to apply some gate operations. So we don't need any special mathematical model, because the mathematical model driving this quantum mechanics or quantum physics has the capability to classify the given or encoded input naturally. That is one beauty of this quantum neural network. I recall I'm following the quantum industry for quantum computing industry for a long time. When it was introduced, people never talked about machine learning or quantum machine learning. The whole industry is looking for quantum mechanics or quantum computing for cryptography, particle physics, chemistry, and quantum finance optimization. These are the major applications when the quantum computers or the scientific world proposed quantum computing to the commercial world. But suddenly, after Madam Schuld paper and prior to that one, few people contributed to that one, it became evident that the artificial intelligence models can be naturally built into quantum processing capabilities. Once they discovered the mathematical model has inherent capability to classify the data, it is like, wow, this is what we are looking for, aha moment kind of thing. Then the machine learning world or the data science world started adopting quantum computing approaches for its models. That is evident when you see this classifier. Do you remember, if you recall your machine learning classifiers, there will be a very complex models, right? When you put it into this one, the regressor or naive based or decision tree, or those things will be put into different what is called different mathematical processing. Then we will get an output. But here you see just only one Hadamard operator.
Sir, sorry to disturb. Can I actually, there is a question here.
Yeah, please.
Yeah. Can we classify images with quantum classifiers? Are there any quantum standards for images? Can we put a classical data set to a quantum classifier directly? 3 questions are there.
Okay, let me answer first question.
Yes,
first
sir.
question, can you see the question or?
Can we classify images with quantum classifiers? First question.
Okay. See, images are once encoded, they doesn't make any difference to the quantum computer or any quantum model. They are once the mechanism of encoding that plays a major role. So to cut it short, yes, we can classify images. So follow-up question. I think the second question is encoding, right, madam?
No, sir. Are there any quantum standards for images?
No. The quantum data or quantum information processing do not divide it. There is a different format for images, different format for sound, or different format for video. It is not defined. It is not classifying, or it's not categorizing any kind of models. Everything should be converted into one of 4 encoding. So with appropriate encoding of your classical data into quantum data, after that, quantum computer will process them as a standard quantum information. Now I request all of you to recall the Blochsphere. So any data will be transferred into a complex number, which can be represented within a Blochsphere with a unit vector. Any unitary operation on top of that complex number will yield another vector in the Ket notation. Now you recall these operations can be done on either audio or video or image or sensor data or a normal decimal number converted into quantum data like that. So this holds true for images also. Does it answer your question?
And one more question, classical data set to a quantum classifier directly. Can we input a classical data set to a quantum classifier directly?
Cannot. Obviously, that's exactly this. This is a good question because the previous questions can be answered with to answer to this question. So previous question, you can recall that image. I told it is possible. We can do that. And quantum computer doesn't distinguish the data, but how? That is answer to this question as well. Any classical data cannot be directly fed into quantum computing because the classical data 0 and 1, right? 0 and 1, 0 and 1, 0 and 1. There are multiple combination of 0 and 1 byte, 8 bits into 1 byte. And we have an encoding system, either ASCII or EBCDIC or ANSI, whatever coding system. But in quantum computing, everything is a Ket notation with a vector of complex number. So a binary number must be converted into a complex number. And this encoding can be done with any one of 4 encoding models. Either you can choose amplitude or phase. Are you able to recall what is an amplitude? I'm referring to that one. The amplitude of your qubit. Should I share any other? Because I'm not. Let me share. I have another backup. So let me go to that backup. Then I will. Because that will help you to recall how this information is. Yeah. Let me take this one. Okay. So hope this is a backup for different presentation. Here you can see here any given classical data can be converted into a photon polarization, or in another model it can be an amplitude of the specific qubit. Like that, there are four models to encode your quantum information, classical information into quantum information. So we have to apply any one of those 4 encoding models to convert your classical data before sending to quantum classifier. Does it answer your question? Okay.
So she said thank you.
Okay. Thank you. Okay. If no more question, I will continue explaining the Hadamard classifier and other classifiers.
I think you can continue.
Yeah, I purposefully stopped here because those things are higher level concepts. See, the QNN or quantum classifier, these are all higher level concepts. What we are going to see from this slide are actual implementation. Actually, what is happening inside a subatomic level. That's why I stopped there, and then now I'm entering into subatomic level. To visualize this, always think about the Blochsphere and imagine that the Blochsphere is inside the electron or inside the proton or inside the quantum hardware. So the quantum hardware has the capability to be represented as a Blochsphere. So the data is lying somewhere within the Blochsphere as an energy. So by manipulating the energy, we are performing the actual operation. But the the energy should not be in the orthonormal state. It should be within the coherent superposition. That's the reason why the Hadamard classifier discussed first. Obviously, the Hadamard is 1 by square root of A ket 0 ket plus 1 ket, right? A 0 ket plus B 1 ket, that value. So we are in the 1 by root square, the Hadamard position, superposition. Recall that one. That sets the context for all other operations, what we are going to see now. Then come swap test classifier. See the swap test classifier. Okay, I have to set the context here. Here, this is the actual data. This X tilt. This is the actual data, and it can be in number of data. So, and this one is here the D is the data qubit and then label. So we use 5 qubit or 4, yeah, it is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 qubit system. First qubit is the ancilla. Hope all of you know what is ancilla. Okay, if any of you, if larger number of people don't know ancilla, I have to explain what is ancilla. Okay, I'm assuming that most of the audience know what is ancilla. With that assumption, I'm moving to the next topic. If you are not able to follow, please stop me, because I'm ready to explain to the lowest level, because this step is very, very crucial for the understanding of quantum machine learning. So here, the ancilla qubit, obviously that is going to process everything. So it will be in the coherent superposition. And we have the data. We have performing the operation called swap and test. You can see it involves 3 qubits: the ancilla bit, then data, the actual input data, see the number of copies of the test data, then actual data. So it is a kind of test and try, everything put into this 5 qubit system. Then we are measuring the label and the ancilla. The label, by measuring the label and the ancilla and then put into a bracket notation, we are able to classify naturally without performing any other complex mathematical model. How it is able to classify these things? The secret lies in the preparation, state preparation. The state preparation is again unitary matrix, unitary operator, which prepare the data by positioning the energy level within that Bloch sphere to the appropriate place. After that, if you perform the measure operation without any further processing, you get the classification. I think that it looks like magic when I say that. I just simply do Hadamard operator, then you will get the classification. How it is working? Because in binary classical, we know, right, that the electrons are moving from the 0 state to energy excited state, and like that they are making multiple transistors are moving. Then it is performing step-by-step operation in the assembly language. Then we are getting output, because there are a lot of steps which may happen in the 15 to 20 clock cycle. So we are getting the output. We can understand that. But here it is only one operation. Just prepare the state, then move to superposition, then perform some swap test, then again move to superposition, then measure it. Only 3 steps. And it is being an oracle, it is going to run within one operation concurrently because of the quantum mechanics principle. You will get the output. Then it looks like, is it magic or how it is happening? To understand this, let me tell you an analogy. See, imagine that all of you know baseball. It is not cricket, it is baseball. I'm purposefully telling baseball, though it looks like cricket. In the baseball, you can see only one batsman in the center. When we throw a ball, he can hit the ball, and then it can reach to anywhere within that baseball ground. Imagine that baseball ground is a blosphere, and one baseball player is standing exactly at the center, and whatever value comes, he is hitting, and he has the capability to precisely send the ball to a specific area within that blosphere. So he keep on hitting concurrently, not one single ball. Concurrently, he is getting the ball and then hitting. At one point, as he stopped hitting, based on the previous balls, they will be in different places. Now, just to measure them, you will get the values. Now you can imagine a baseball player who is able to determine which hit the ball to correct place, whether he has history or he has historical data or whatever it is, but he has the capability to hit the ball wherever to send. For example, it should go to the green color, a particular ball should go to the green color stadium. Other ball should go to yellow color stadium. Other ball should go to red color stadium. Like that, he has some calculations and hitting the balls, and then exactly they are going there. So this is what happening in reality at subatomic level. In a massively parallel fashion. So with this explanation, some of you may get an idea, oh, this is what happening actually. Indeed, this is what happening inside the subatomic level, at the electron level, at the particle level. It may be boson, furon, or Mayer or whatever it is. It can be a Josephson junction, whatever the underlying quantum hardware. It can be trapped ion or diamond NV vacancy or photonic or phase flip in your photon. It can be whatever it is. But the moment you make it a superposition and then perform any swap test or just measure it, the value of that energy state will be in the correct classification. It is depending on the state preparation. So the key is not the superposition, it is state preparation. The way how you are preparing the state, based on that, it will classify the data, or the energy will be moved to different area within the blosphere. I want to take a pause here just to sink this concept, because this is entirely important concept to understand. Not only for quantum machine learning, the overall quantum mechanics, how quantum computers are capable of massively process the information. Imagine this way, always imagine this way. A baseball player capable of hitting the balls to wherever it should go in massively parallel fashion. Then at one point at time, he stops everything. Like magic, Thanos magic, like that, everything will fall either down or up. That is meaning that they are going to orthonormal position. Before going to the orthonormal position, they are in a superposition, which is your required output. I'm expecting few questions, so passing here. Any question, madam? All right. Okay. If no more questions, we can move to the next topic. Next slide. Next slide is built on top of these two classifiers. Circuit-centric quantum classifiers. See, now we saw a single gate based classifiers, right? Now those single gate based classifiers can be put into a quantum circuit for building more advanced classifiers. That is the circuit-centric quantum classifiers. So most of the quantum processes are supervised. I have not seen any unsupervised learning so far. Maybe I might have missed some of the literature, but in my real world, I have seen only real life, supervised learning so far, whatever I'm seeing. Maybe
So some questions are coming up. Can I ask, sir?
Yes, madam, please, madam. I'm
Yeah.
waiting for those questions. Indeed,
Okay.
I'm waiting for those questions. because
Yeah, yeah.
before giving
Is only 1 qubit for incoming data from classical data set?
when you go for a Hadamard classifier, it is true, only 1 qubit.
Okay.
So
Next
far, I
question.
explained with the only one qubit as an example. That is true. Yeah.
So what is A and D used for input data set? Maybe they are referring to the
Yeah.
picture. Yeah.
This one. Yeah, I know that. I expected this question. A and this D, right?
Yes, sir.
Yeah, this D is the training data, and this X qubit is the actual data. So, for any supervised learning, we need training data and test data, right? That is test data and training data and test data. Sorry, it is like this: training data with actual data, test data with actual data. We will do in 2 phases, right? That 2 data, X tilde and D. A is the ancilla. A is a system or a qubit which is used to measure the value. So always all the quantum circuits will have one ancilla. The reason is that we cannot touch the processing data. If you start measuring, it will end the processing. So always any quantum circuits will use one ancilla bit. You can see any of the quantum circuits or quantum solutions, you will see at least one ancilla, and some complex systems will need 2 or 3 ancillas. So ancillas are a way to measure the intermediate results. Because all of you know that when you measure, the quantum circuit will come to its orthonormal position. That's it, collapsed. After that, we can't measure what is happening. But we want to continue the processing, but in between, we want to measure the intermediate thing. Or at the end, also, we want to measure. So to measure the actual processing, we will keep ancilla bits, ancilla qubits. Based on your algorithm, you may need either one ancilla or multiple ancillas. In this case, since it is a single qubit operation, we are having only one ancilla. Okay. Does it answer your question? Next question, madam.
Shikre, sir, I hope you got the answer. Yes, sir. You can continue. Thank you.
Okay, cool. Because exactly I expected this question, because when you see when you see the Hadamard, it is very clear because it is ancilla DLM. But here one more bit is added, and then here is only one operation, Hadamard operation. But here one Hadamard operation and then one swap test. Swap test is operating on 3 qubits. Okay, and the measurement is happening on only 1 qubit. That's what I told, only 1 qubit, because the measurement is happening on only on one. But in the here, it is happening on one ancilla and one label, which is used to classify the data. Okay. Always we have to measure the label. That's the reason why the label measuring is not included in the discussion. So only 1 qubit, but here it is 3 qubits. Okay. Now coming to the circuit-centric quantum classifiers. So this is one qubit, and this one is the one gate. Here it is multiple gate, and then we are going to build a more powerful or more generic, flexible quantum circuits for processing real world problem. Here we can see the graphical representation as x naught to psi naught, and then x into psi, like that, and it is a mapping. That mapping is done in the form of state preparation, then non-linear mapping. In the circuit, quantum circuit, we are doing in the name of state preparation. Then we have the model circuit. This is called Oracle in quantum solutions. Then we are measuring the output. That is the post processing, which is the classical phase is doing that. Then again that will be fed into state preparation. So these are the 4 steps involved in building a circuit-centric quantum classifiers. So the full inference in the 4 steps. Language of, so actually this is the representation of this image. So I'm not deep diving into that one. Conceptually, we are doing the same thing. State prepare the state, feed to the quantum circuit, measure the output, then process using your classical component, then send back to quantum computing for state preparation. So the state preparation will be tuned for optimizing your output, whether it may maximization or minimization, based on your what is called square laws and accuracy functions. Then comes pre-tensor network. This is a variant. It is more capable. It has more capability than the standard circuit centric. Again, it is also circuit centric classifier, but it uses the pre-tensor. So this classical test, you can see it is a n-list, the image data. Somebody asked the question, right? This particular example answered their question. Indeed, in the practical session, I have one example with this image data. So here, the data instance X from classical data sets transformed into quantum state. So this also a question asked by your team faculty members sometime just a few minutes back above. So the data instance X transformed into quantum state by feeding each element data vector Xi through local map, defining a qubit superposition. So the block pair is not here. That's why I explained. You remember block pair. Isometric tensors of TTN. See these isometric tensors, these triangles, defines a coarse grinding of collection of these quantum feature vectors. So quantum feature vectors is an important concept which we will cover when I demonstrate the actual coding. The highest level of scale, the projection of the extracted feature vector onto the collection of weight vectors. And there is few more steps which I will cover here. Oh. Jump to that. That's why I thought it is missing. Okay, never mind. So the pre-tensor, it is called the real space RG, renormalization groups. That is how the pre-tensor network classifier able to classify the data. So the renormalization, for example, length scale or energy scale, this normalization can be used for this one. This is the pre-tensor network classifier, which is in short it is called TTN. And this variant is being used in many POCs these days because of the capability to process using this RG, renormalization groups. The next one is MERA, multi-scale entangled renormalization ansatz. It is not answer, it is ansatz classifier. The traditional MERA is a tensor network that corresponds to quantum circuits, and the model is finally contracted to one. Therefore, we make some modification to the original model. In the MERA model is a cascade of isometric and disentangler. So the disentangler is can be mentioned as, for example, we follow. I removed two-dimensional MERA for machine learning, which will be alpha 1, mu 1, alpha 2, mu 2, alpha 3. Those things are applied to alpha dash. Then we will have delta alpha 1, alpha dash, alpha 2, alpha dash, 2 dash, like that. Then they are isometric. Since the tensors in even rows isometric, see, these are odd row, this is even row. So we will give an indices to top tensors by T star, see W star, T star, U star, U star, W star, T star. So the tensor will handle the classification. Once we put into the multiplication, we will get delta alpha and alpha dash. So here, again, if you see in the two-dimensional picture, You can see it is mapping to those images and find the pattern, then classify the pattern into one of the trained set. So it is, as I told you, it is a supervised learning or supervised classification. It will be which is the same number of classes for image classification. Okay. Okay. This is with this we have covered all the various classifiers, quantum classifiers. Now I'm going to see whatever we have seen is a kind of theory. Now we are going to see the actual implementation. So hereafter we are going to see the program. I want to take a pause. If you have any questions, I will answer, then move to the actual implementation. We can
From the
ask
audience,
questions.
any question, kindly ask in the chat box, or if you want to ask question, I will unmute you. You can ask, sir.
Because we have three counts: circuit centric, TTN, and MERA. These three things. These are all actual classifiers which being used in the real life POCs. I won't say real life solutions, real life POCs.
I guess there are no questions, sir. I think you
Cool.
can proceed.
Okay, that's good. Right. Let me move to an interesting part. You might have seen almost all quantum computers. See, we might hear the quantum computers are very powerful, very powerful, very powerful. But they always used in connection or integrated with hybrid approach with the CPU, with the classical computing. When quantum computer is so powerful, why we need classical computing? Obviously, quantum computer is not going to replace our classical computer. It is going to complement our existing classical computer. Just for that, I want to recall, we have classical computer CPU. And when we are performing graphical operations or advanced mathematical operations, we are using GPU, right? Graphical processing unit, to increase the performance of any classical computer. So any machine learning model running on a CPU system and compared with a system running on the GPU and CPU, you will see the difference, right? So CPU plus GPU, central processing unit added with the graphical processing unit will give you more processing power. Similarly, in the machine learning world or data science world, we prefer TPU, tensor processing unit, offered by Google Cloud Infrastructure. So we can build our machine learning model or data science model, considering that our model is going to run on a system with CPU, GPU, and TPU. And similarly, the quantum computing world is offering CPU as another enhancement to the computation, quantum processing unit. So you can build an algorithm with the help of CPU, GPU, TPU, and QPU. So you will divide the full problem into appropriate processing units. Classical processing unit will do some operation, GPU will do some operation, TPU will do some operation, QPU will do some other operation, which are specific to that processing model. So by seeing this, you will understand, oh, TPU use an enhancement to existing computation capabilities. So it is not a replacement to any one of these ones. So that is the reason why I just want to call out the CPU, GPU, TPU, QPU integration. We should register that one. It is always possible to build a solution only with the CPU or with the combination of CPU, GPU, TPU, QPU, like that. So we will divide the workload to specific processing units. If it is quantum only problem, that portion will go to QPU. If it is TPU, it will go to GPU. Sometimes the GPU processing will give to TPU, TPU will give to QPU. Then QPU will come back to CPU, like this. Okay. So this structure is one of the preferred structure, the infrastructure. So keep this in mind. Then I'm going to discuss about popular quantum frameworks. All of us know that Qiskit is very popular, right? And Qiskit is from IBM, and Pennyline is from Xanadu. And in addition to Qiskit and Pennyline, we have other frameworks from various vendors. For example, Microsoft is giving Q-Sharp, and Ocean from D-Wave, Forest from Rigetti, and CIRQ, SIP from Google. Google has advantage because since they already have TensorFlow, they are offering quantum TensorFlow, QTF. If you go to if you search for QTF, you can find Google is offering quantum TensorFlow. And so I will summarize. We have Qiskit, Pennyline, quantum TensorFlow, and Ocean, Forest. These are all various framework, and Microsoft has Q-Sharp. So these are all various frameworks, and our solution, most of our solutions will not stick to one framework, because I worked on some problems where I have to use both Qiskit as well as AWS bracket with Pennyline or some other Xanadu functions. Or
One question here.
Yeah, yes, madam.
Is there a classifier which work with numerical sensor data?
Yes, there are classifiers. They will work with the numerical sensors data. When it comes to quantum classifiers, numerical sensors data use cases are very, how to say, it is redundant, or we may not need a quantum based solution, because if the sensor data is not that complex, then industry will continue using the classical classifier. Because most of the sensors data will fall into a range, and based on the veracity or the what is called the velocity of the data, it will be fed into appropriate big data system. A classical system can process that one. But if you ask it technically, it is possible. There are some experimental POCs built on top of sensor data on quantum computing, just to as a proof of concept, not as a real life solution. Make sense? The reason why sensor numerical data are not preferred, but image data or those things are the capability or the parallel processing required to process an image is much more higher than processing a numerical data. Make sense? A numerical data can be simply classified because already it is a number. But image is not one single number. The whole image will be converted into multiple numbers and then put into a system, quantum system, which can process them in parallel. But in numerical sensor data, it is going to come in serial with a manageable velocity, and it is only one single number. We don't need advanced system like quantum classifiers there. Does it answer your question? Okay. Anything else, madam? Any question? Any other questions, madam? Okay. If not, I will continue. So these are all the popular frameworks. As I summarized, it is Qiskit, Pennyline, Ocean, Forest, Q-Sharp, Silk. These are all the 6 broader software frameworks which we are using from the year 2019 or 2018. But prior to that, there are a lot of simulators. There are many Java-based simulators, C++, C-based simulators. But these days, whatever I told now, all these 6 frameworks except Q-Sharp, all are based on Python. But in reality, I have seen a demand for C++ based implementation for the higher performance. And Julia based implementation also there. These two things are giving better performance than Python based frameworks. But the underlying models are very, very complex when you go to C++ or Julia based quantum solutions. And the Julia based quantum solution follows a concept called quantum walk. This offline from this subject, but you should know these things. There are solutions based on C++ and Julia also. Now I'm moving to VQC. I'm going to show an example based on Pennyland based solution. I will run the program and then show you, because so far I'm theoretically explained, right? Now I'm going to show you a program, VQC Pennyland. This is the actual program. You can see here, we have created a point. These are all simulator, not on real hardware system. But QML Pennyland has the capability to run your workload either on IBM Quantum Q or AWS Bracket. And they have given capability to run on SIPC also, but I never tried. I tried in both IBM System Q and AWS Bracket, but I did not try in the Google. But for our presentation, I'm using simulator. Then we have a default qubit as a QML device. Then there is this function. Come back to the presentation. So you have, these are all the functions: layer, circuit, VQC, square loss, accuracy, cost. These are all functions. If you see cost, it is using VQC prediction again, then square loss again. So these two functions are used for cost. Then accuracy is based on the loss and count. Then square loss is just loss. Then circuit, this is where the actual state preparation is going on. Now the actual flow, the pipeline is that load data, built-in optimizer. Here they are using Nestro momentum NMO. Then they are repeating these operations. This is the classical phase and then quantum phase. Calculate cost, predict, then calculate accuracy, then feedback. It will keep on repeating. So this flow is going to help you to explain the steps involved in building a variational quantum classifier using Pennyland. Let me show the program now. So this is the actual program. Here you can see there is a rotation. The layer is nothing but a rotation and then C0. Then see the state preparation is going to the basis state. Basis state is the orthonormal basis state. All 4 qubits are moved to the orthonormal position. Then we are creating a quantum node. So a circuit with the state preparation, then it is returning expected value of the poly Z matrix. I believe that all of you know poly X, Y, Z matrices. So these are the matrices operating on your Blosphere to process your or to move your energy state to the required data. Sorry, there's a power failure here. Then the actual classifier. If you see the variational classifier, it is just only one line. It is returning a circuit with the various bias and a given X value. But this variational classifier is called multiple times here. You can see here. In the cost, it is called with the list comprehension approach. Then there is one more place also it is called. Here it is being called. This is actual implementation where we are running. Here it is called multiple times with the prediction. So it is for 25 times it is repeated. Okay, now come back to the variational circuit, variation classifier, then square loss. This square loss and accuracy are used as the feed forward approach or patched backward approach. I will show that in this one. You can see here there is a process. So it is in the next circuit. So in this one, it is not there. It is repeating. Now I want to run the program and then show you the output. To run the program, I have a Python environment. I already ran it because the last one is going to take time. So I'm not going to disturb this one. So let me start a new command prompt. In the command prompt, I have multiple environment in my Python. Here I'm activating environment QC. Let's activate. Feel free to stop me if you don't, if you are not able to follow any of this programming. I will stop and then explain. Because we have sufficient time for this 4 presentation. Actually, I kept these 4 programs as an important part of our presentation. The reason is that theory part you can learn from anywhere. It is very easy to see, but the explanation to the practical programs, which I'm good at that programs, right? So I can explain that even line by line. That's I kept it 1 hour for or 45 minutes for this one. But I think we have 15 minutes for Q&A, considering that we have 30 minutes for 4 programs. Right? So now,
So it looks like screen is not changing, sir.
oh, is it? No, I have
Yeah.
not typed it, madam. Now only I'm typing.
Okay, okay, fine.
Do you see now? I'm typing here in a command prompt. We are in the RBC folder.
No,
I'm typing
sir.
dir.
No, sir.
Oh, okay. Then I think I have to do. Is there anything I have to do? Okay, I will share again. Yeah, share. Okay. Do you see now, madam?
Yeah, yeah. Now it
Yeah.
is
Do you
visible.
see now command prompt, right?
Yes, yes, sir.
Sorry, I missed that part because earlier I just shared the PowerPoint presentation. Now I realize I did not. Now, okay, right. Because this is the important step. So I want all of you to see this actual development. Being a data scientist, I'm heavily depending on Jupyter Notebook. But for this problem, I prefer to go with Python 5 rather than Jupyter Notebook. The reason is that most of the quantum applications, I found Python approach is better than the Jupyter Notebook. Even if you go through Pennyline or Qiskit demonstrations, you will see Jupyter Notebook as their explanation. But when you're bundling your solution and then deploying to giving to your IBM system, actual system and all, I found this Python approach is giving better performance than Jupyter Notebook. That is the reason I used to write the programs in a Python 5 with this kind of full programs. But I have a Jupyter Notebook also. I will show you. The third example is the Jupyter Notebook. So now coming back to this program, I am just typing Python QC underscore 12. So this is the program. If I type this one, if I enter this one, you can see it will run in phases. 1, 2, 3, 4, like that will run in multiple phases. And this error you can ignore because I don't have GPU in my laptop. It will take some time. Then it will run as a. So in the meantime, you can see the program. You are seeing this output and then my program. So it is running as the cost. You can see the cost is getting reduced and accuracy also increasing. Once we reach the accuracy and then the number of the cost. See here we have good accuracy, but still cost is high. That's the reason it is repeating till 25. Even if you run more iteration, you can see the cost is reduced. Okay, it is using a gradient, the tensor operations. And these are the initial values, which is in the layered input. So here, if you see, let me show the output. The first output is coming because of this line. See this print line for I in range 5. You see the 5 lines here. These 5 lines are because of this line number 64 and 65. We are printing x equal to and y equal to with the x of I and the integer of y. That's how we are the typical x matrix and y matrix, test data and train data. Then we have a tensor operations where it is done with the help of random numbers. I think this program is hiding. So it is number of qubits 3, and then we have optimization, batch size is 5. Then we are repeating 25 times. So that is what you are seeing. Iteration 1 with the cost and the accuracy. Repeat. Okay. So this is a very simple program. And if you see, it is calling a variational classifier with the given variable, where the variable is the step cost function, lambda cost function. So this OPT is the optimization, the Nestro momentum optimization. Then called it accept the no argument returns a new featureless instance, the NMO. NMO is popular for this one. Okay. Okay. Any question on this program? I shared these programs also. Sir, please share these programs with lecturers, other lecturers and professors who are all interested. They can play around with these programs. And these are all openly available. So I took this as a follow-up. Wherever if you want to learn on your own, you can learn on your own by seeing this one. And this is a GD optimizer. Nestro moment. So this is penny-line optimizer. Is there in the penny-line optimizer momentum optimizer. Much simpler model, but giving you a sense of VQC in operation. You can see how the VQC function will work in operation. Okay, now I will move to next problem. Any problem without iris in the machine learning world, we won't consider it as a complete, right? That's why I included this iris problem. So the iris problem, hope all of you know iris problem. It is the set of flowers in the South America. How we can identify the flower class, it is Setosa or Virginica, or what is the other one? Setosa, Virginica, and there's one more, I forgot that one. So any one of these 3 classes. So the same data. Again, here one good thing is one difference from the standard penny line is that we are using get angle. Let's go to the PowerPoint because I have explained the concept. See here, load data, normalize data, then find feature. See, the get angle is used to find features of the data. So finding feature set in Qiskit, it is done with the help of poly Z map, but here it is get angle in Pennyland. So in Pennyland, we are applying this arc sign operator for finding the angle, which will identify the features. So for any given data set, it will find the features and that will be written. We have, as usual, state preparation. State preparation is in this problem, it is rotation Y, then CNOT. On each data, there are 5 data points. So for each data point, it is applying this one. Then we have test the angle with the state preparation. Then we have the layer, then actual quantum circuit, then square loss accuracy as usual, There is a real operation. You load the data from here, load the data set, then find the angles after the normalization here. Then we find the feature map. Then after the features here, we started plotting the data. That is what I explained here. Plot the distribution, build the optimizer, then repeat it as long as you want, or you get the relevant accuracy, and these are the functions. You go here also we are using NMO, Nestro Momentum Optimizer. And we are repeating here. But this one is, it will give you, since it is a popular problem, in this example, they are showing images. Let me run them. Since I am running on a command prompt, the images will stop the execution. After that, we have to proceed. So I'm going to run Python. This is the problem. It will take some time because this is going to plot the charts, and then it will stop in between when it shows the data. So this is the standard original data, right, in a scatter diagram. Then that is padded and normalized data. So original data, after normalizing, it is falling into this kind of thing. Then it is easy to see the outliers. You see, these are the outliers. Then comes feature vectors. After, now we are identifying the feature vectors for the data. Then after identifying these things, after pattern normalization, then identifying feature vector, we are building the real accuracy data. You can see the iteration will go for run for 25 times. After it is processing the 25 times, when the cost is reduced and then accuracy also achieved, then we will plot the actual classifier in a matplotlib chart. Let's wait for 25 iteration. This is very interesting. Simple that actually I have the opportunity to work in both Qiskit as well as Pennyland. Right? Whenever I'm working in Pennyland, the way the approach towards the problem is not easier in Pennyland. Don't mistake me. I'm a Qiskit certified developer, IBM certified developer, but still for this QML problems, I like Pennyland. For other problems, Qiskit is really good. But when it comes to QML, I like Pennyland very much. It is taking some time, but we have to wait. Madam, is there any question? I am ready to answer those questions.
No questions, sir.
Okay, I think since we are showing programs, it is very interesting. I'm assuming so. This is a very nascent technology, right? There are a lot of intricacies and then a lot of things we don't understand. Sometimes the literature will intimidate us. Oh my God, how much we have to study to understand this concept. And how many times you repeatedly study, you won't understand certain concepts. Even your mentor explains to you, that time also it won't be very clear. So particularly with the quantum world, we need some time to read the literature and get the concept sink into our brain, then reread again the same literature, then sink. If you do 2 or 3 cycles like that, you will be able to understand the exact concept. For example, remember the Hadamard classifier I told? When you first time hear how a Hadamard operator is going to classify, you can't understand. Maybe after the baseball player example, you will feel something, oh, okay, it's something happening there. Okay, something happening which can be applied for classification. Then you have to read on your own, then think through, then you will understand. This is how uh, most of us are learning quantum related stuff. So this is one class train and validation. Class, see the number is 2. So this is a neat, you can see how the classes are granular, really a powerful capability provided by. It's available in classical also. I don't want to claim that this is only available in QML. But a QML approach can perform what already we are doing in classical. That itself is a great positive proof of concept in the quantum world. The reason is that the number of qubits. Popular working quantum computer has just 31 qubit, and IBM is building 49 qubit. And sorry, Google, IBM is, they are telling that they are going to release 75 qubit, and D-Wave is claiming that they are having 2000 qubit annealer, but that is being annealer, it cannot be used for quantum approach. Okay, now I want to go to the third problem. The third program, as I told you earlier, it is a Jupyter notebook. So I have to start the Jupyter lab and then open that problem. I purposefully kept this in the Jupyter lab because you should not think that all the quantum programs should be done as a Python file. It's not there. They are most of the examples are in Jupyter notebook only. In the interest of time, I have already executed this particular QNN. Just I will walk through this one. These are the import. As all of you know, it is the import from Opflow, then circuit library. Here you can see real amplitude ZZ feature map. See the ZZ feature map is the second order poly Z map. There is a first order, just Z feature map. That also can be used for finding feature map. But in real life, we use second order poly mapping, poly Z matrix. In the real one. Okay, right. Then we are having expected value, then gradient. Then we have created a simulator. There are two simulators. One is for state vector, other one is for actual AER simulator. Then we are having the flow optimization for the QNN. Then we have give you a parameter circuit, which is going to give you this Hadamard gate, then rotation Y, rotation X. Rotation Y of input, rotation X of gate. So that is what is happening here. After that, we are building the QNN circuit, Opflow QNN, the given parameters. Then if you change the weights, then input to be that forward bias. See, this is forward bias. Sorry, forward pass. Sorry, I have to show this one. Yeah, this is the presentation. Yeah, this is the QNN. You can see here, we have three demonstrations. One is Opflow QNN, other one is two layer, the third one is circuit QNN. So in the Opflow, we have build objective function, then construct, then fast forward, backward, patched backward. In two layer, the same thing, but it is fast forward and backward. So these are the things and these are the functions. Let me show the program now. The program is in this Jupyter lab. And after that flow QNN, we have fast forward, then we have the output. Similarly, now we are building the this is two layer QNN, where we have layer 1 and layer 2. Okay. Then here we are using ZZ feature map. See, the ZZ feature map is the powerhouse of any quantum machine learning. in the Qiskit world. And all these things are Qiskit, not on Pennyland. You can see here the import, it is all Qiskit. Okay. So this approach, these two problems are based on Qiskit. The previous two problems are based on Pennyland. You might have changed the approach. Here we are not using layer or rectangle. Here we are using ZZ feature map. Okay. Right. And here also we have, after the ZZ feature map, in the two layer QNN. Most of you can understand this circuit diagram. If you go to if you have Qiskit account, you can draw this kind of circuits and then see the output. And here there is the ansatz, which is going with the real amplitude. Here the ansatz is used for encoding, data encoding. Then there is an observable with the poly sum operations. Then we are building the actual two-layer QNN with the given feature map and then ansatz, then observable. Then it is performing the operation. After the forward and backward, you will get the result. So the forward and backward are like classical phase. Then the important thing, the powerful, which is called circuit QNN, where the real life POCs are built on using circuit QNN. If you have a problem based on neural network, and you have to use circuit QNN for implementing the problem. The two QNN and then offlow QNN, or offlow QNN still being used in some places. I don't think where I have used the two layer. I don't remember where I have used two layer, but I have used the circuit QNN. Then real amplitudes. Then we are building the circuit with QNN4. Here you can see the parameters are very simple. Yes, it has to process multiple things, so it will use the parameters. Then there is weight and input. Then we are building, and then it is using tens matrix. You see here two tens. This operator means we are going to use a sparse matrix from this output. The sparse matrix is being given feedback. Then we have a cost function. Then this particular step will be repeated in forward QNN forward pass and then backward pass 2 times. Then we will build another QNN with the see here the quantum is QA QSAM, but here also they are using the Poisson simulator. Don't see where they are using the state vector, the state simulator. You can see here this. If you search for this one, it is used in the optimized flow QNN, and in another place it is being used in the Yes, I just want to show you in two-layer QNN. But in circuit QNN, we don't use state vector simulator. We will use only COSM simulator. I want to highlight this one because the COSM simulator, if you use a state vector simulator, certain operations will take long time. It won't return. Even if you go for a 164 GB system, your system is going to hang when you use state vector simulator. So always use state vector simulator whenever it is necessary. Otherwise, don't use that. Use QA, the COSM simulator. That is one important lesson we have to learn. So COSM simulator is always safe, unless otherwise you know very well that you need state vector and then you need the state diagrams, the state vector for next manipulation. That time only go for state vector and then stop the scope of that state vector simulator. Don't use it for all operations. That is one lesson learned. This is a good demonstration of our favorite Jupyter notebook for quantum machine learning problem. I purposely kept it here, though I wanted to do it as a py file. I just want to show you most of the problems. If you see in the literature or Google, whenever you are searching for any other site, you will see as a Jupyter notebook only. You are free to work as a Jupyter notebook. But for my personal reason, I'm using command prompt. See, when it comes to your professional systems, you can't run them on a Jupyter notebook. It should be converted into a py file, and it should use the OOPS concept. So as a final part of today's demo, I'm going to show you the solution based on PyTorch. PyTorch, you can use Keras or PyTorch or TensorFlow or scikit-learn, any one of the model. But this one I chose PyTorch because this is available in the internet easily. Then you can follow. If you start building that, you can follow these examples. That's why I put it. And here, let me forget these classes. Let me minimize them. Because these classes will confuse if I keep them. Sorry. Okay. So if you see here, there is a simulator. We are getting a simulator. Then we are creating a circuit. After the circuit, we are MNIST dataset. See, MNIST dataset, you know, right? This is the image, handwritten image MNIST dataset. It's coming from IBM defined. This dataset is already imported here. So from this line number 6. So from this Torch Vision, it is coming. Actually, there is another problem. In the real life, we will use OpenCV for this one. But in this case, for a demonstration purpose, we are using this Torch Vision. So we are, you can see here, this is train loader is this one. The X train. Then we have test loader. See, X train, X test. These two data sets are given into a model. The model is created using net. Then it is an ADAM based model. The optimizer is ADAM model. Then the loss function is NLR. Now you can remember that in DQC and all, we built this loss function as our own function. Remember, the loss is built here as the square loss and accuracy and all. But in Qiskit, they are available out of the box. We can use them. Then I set 20 epochs. Then I'm running for 20 epochs repeatedly, then plotting the diagram. So when I run this one, I don't want to run again because that is going to take a lot of time. Yesterday for this presentation, I ran and then saw this result, get the result ready, just to show you that. Showing the time, but it took a lot of time. And it took more than 30 or 40 minutes because of the 20 epochs. And then there is a 0.46 rotation in the pi value. After reading all this value, it gave this accuracy. Lost this much accuracy 100%. That's it from my presentation. Now I am open for Q&A, and there is a list of resources from where you can read those things. And now I am open for Q&A. I think we are on time. I have 15 minutes to answer.
Yes, sir.
Yeah, feel free to answer any question, even any fundamental also you can ask.
Yeah. From audience, as sir said, you can actually ask fundamental questions also. You can actually privately, message to the host, or you can directly ask sir. Otherwise, I'll unmute you. You can ask direct question to sir.
Yep.
Anything is fine.
Any question, not only quantum classifier.
Yeah. You can ask any question
Related to quantum computing.
Yeah. Looks like sir, there are no questions.
During lunchtime asking questions.
Yes, sir. Yeah.
It is expected. purposefully I kept it 15 minutes, and then that is the reason I asked questions in between, because I know
No, but
at the end of the
audience are
session.
very interactive, sir. We have been observing for almost 3 days, right? So
Yeah.
they actually, yeah, one question has come from Arun Kumar, sir. What is the future of quantum dot cellular automata, sir?
Quantum dot cellular automata. Oh, this is for one of the quantum hardware platform, right? Using the quantum dot. I'm not sure which company is researching on this one. The industry is looking for all possible quantum hardware platforms. So if the quantum dot is going to be a promising platform with less coherent time, it will reach, or it will be considered as one of the preferred hardware platform. But as of now, I think still it is in the nascent stage. So I can't comment anything on the hardware side. And I really appreciate your college initiative on conducting an exclusively workshop on quantum computing technology. This is amazing because now only the industry is coming, but you are ahead of the curve and started equipping the faculties with the quantum knowledge. It is amazing. And I have the privilege to work with few of your students. They are really bright. And it is really nice to see this kind of initiatives. The industry, the academy is competing with the industry with the advanced technology. That's really amazing. I appreciate all the faculties and then management for arranging this kind of program. I'm hearing very first time within this our region. Amazing. Kudos to all involved in this activity.
Thank you, sir. Thank you very much, sir. Sir, this is actually, we started with the quantum computing workshop for faculties in Karnataka. Then we got approval from Atal, where we combined machine learning with quantum. So this is the second FDP we are conducting in RVC.
Amazing. Amazing. That's great.
Yeah, and under the leadership of Dr. B.S. Satish Babu, sir.
Great.
Yeah.
Thank you, sir. Thank you for
Thank you. Thank you very much.
presentation. And in fact, we haven't covered Penilin in earlier 3 days. It was good to see that platform also. So participants, he has shared the slides with me, and
Yes, sir.
if possible, you may also share the the code if you
Yes,
don't
sir.
mind.
I shared that also, sir. I sent the first mail, right? In that mail, I have included all the
Okay.
Python programs.
So that we can share with the participants.
Yes, sir.
Then go ahead with this practicing
Yes,
it.
Because I thought that the source code will help them and make a difference.
Yeah.
Because that's why I shared with.
Yeah. So thank you, sir.
Amazing.
And we would like to have a continuous, work with you.
Amazing, sir. I'm excited whenever you talk about quantum. It is a kind of passion for me. I am very happy to collaborate with you and your faculty members for any real-time implementation or any research or anything. I'm very happy because I
You're
have the
also
real
part of
industry exposure.
QCI now, sir. QCI.
Yes, sir. I'm one of the co-founder.
That is why our students who are members there, I think they have come kind of recommended their name, and they were very much appreciating your knowledge. So
thanks, sir.
It's an opportunity to listen to you, and thank you very much, sir. I will be in touch with you.
Sure, sir.
On behalf of RVC and organizing committee, I thank you.
Thanks, sir.
Thank you,
Thanks
sir.
to all. Thank you. Bye-bye.
Thank you, audience. We'll get back at 2:30 for a session by Art of Living.